Hey guys, it's Saga, and in my 7th video of this year, we are going to take a very detailed look at all the cameras on the Xiaomi 11T Pro. I could have uploaded this video sooner, but just as I got this phone, I had a travel opportunity, so I decided to take this phone with me and see how these cameras perform in various lighting and weather conditions, so I can have a lot more image and video samples for you guys in this video. We have over 100 image and video samples to go through, and I don't want this video to be too long, so let's dive straight in with the camera specs. We get a triple camera setup on the back of this 11T Pro. Primary camera gets a 108 megapixel sensor with f1.75 aperture and a 26mm lens. Secondary camera gets an 8 megapixel sensor with f2.2 aperture and an ultra wide angle lens. Third and the final camera gets a 5 megapixel telemacro lens with f2.4 aperture. These cameras are backed by the powerful ISP on the Snapdragon 888 processor. Main rear camera can shoot 8K videos at 30 fps and 1080p and 4K videos at 30 and 60 fps. For slow motion, you can shoot 120, 240 and 960 fps videos at 1080p and 720p resolution. At the front, there is a 16 megapixel selfie camera with f2.45 aperture and it can shoot 1080p videos at 60 fps. Interface of the camera app is similar to most of the other Xiaomi phones. You can switch between modes by swiping to the left or right. And if you guys don't know how to get to the macro mode, tap on these 3 lines on the top and select the macro option from there. You get a pro mode where you can adjust all the settings like white balance, focus, shutter speed, ISO and exposure according to your liking. Range for ISO is from 50 to 6400 and range for shutter speed is from 1/4000th of a second all the way up to 30 seconds. You can also take raw images from here. The best thing is, these settings are available while shooting videos as well, and you also get the option to shoot videos in log profile. Before we move on to the image and video samples, if you are new to this channel, please consider hitting the subscribe button and the bell icon next to it. That way, you won't miss out on any of the amazing videos coming up on this channel. This time, let us start with the videos which I took with this phone. The main camera on this 11T Pro can shoot at a maximum resolution of 8K 30 fps. These videos have a lot of details in them, but they don't have any kind of video stabilization. If you have steady pair of hands, these 8K videos look really good. When I played back these videos on the phone itself, it felt a bit choppy at times, or it seemed like the frames were being dropped here and there. But when I played back these 8K videos on my computer, they seemed to be playing fine without any stutters or frame drops. I don't know how many of you guys know this, but the Google Photos app has a built-in stabilization option for videos. And once you put these 8K videos via that stabilization, just look at how good they look. You get electronic stabilization when you switch to 4K resolution. Both the 30 and 60 fps videos at 4K resolution get gyro EIS support, and these videos look really good. You can switch to the movie mode, which adds black bars at the top and bottom of your videos to make them look more cinematic. There are few more effects like the color filter and bokeh effect which looks cool, but be aware that switching to these effects locks the video on your phone to 720p resolution, which doesn't look all that good. The wide camera maxes out at shooting 1080p videos at 30 fps. You can take videos with the macro camera as well, and it again maxes out at shooting 1080p 30 fps videos. If you are looking for a phone in this price range and you want to vlog with it, then you should definitely have the Xiaomi 11T Pro as one of your main options. For the images, let us begin with the ones which I took in bright sunny lighting conditions while I was in Pune. Main camera gets a 108 megapixel sensor, but by default it captures 12 megapixel pixel bin images. Although these are 12 megapixel shots, you can see a lot of information and details in them. In typical Xiaomi fashion, a bit of sharpening is applied to these images, but for the most part they don't look overprocessed. They actually look good. These images hold on to their details even as I zoom in on them. You can see a lot of details in these indoor daytime shots as well. I think I'm more impressed with the cameras on this 11T Pro because I had used the Xiaomi 11i before this and its cameras were really underwhelming. By the way, I had the Xiaomi 11i with me as well, and I took some images with both these phones, so if you guys want to see a camera comparison between them, let me know by hitting the like button. While it was nice and sunny in Pune, the weather conditions when I went to Delhi were very cold, overcast and wet. Main camera on this Xiaomi 11T Pro still manages to take good looking images. As I zoom in on these shots, there aren't as many details in them as we saw in bright sunny shots, but they still look good and usable for the most part. I don't know if you guys noticed this or not, but colors seem to be a bit more saturated in all of the images from this phone. I mean, they are not oversaturated, but they seem a bit more vibrant than how the scene looked in real life. I don't like how saturated the orange color looks in this image, but other than in this particular shot, I like the extra bit of saturation in these images as it makes the images look more lively. Color is obviously a personal choice and everyone perceives them in a different way, so whether or not you will like these colors will depend on your personal preference. If for some reason you feel these colors are not saturated or vibrant enough, you can go ahead and turn on the AI mode and that will boost the colors even more. I left the HDR mode on auto and it is intelligent enough to come up for situations which demand it, like for these shots. In this particular one, there is a bright sun in the shot and we also have many things in the shadows. The HDR mode is intelligent enough to bring up a lot of details on the shadows and also preserve the bright areas of the shot. As you can see, colors also look really good in these HDR shots. In this one, the sun was behind the trees, but the phone did well and did not overexpose the entire sky. And at the same time, it also brought back many details from the leaves in the trees. There is some noise or grain in the shadows in these HDR shots, but that is to be expected in these cloudy conditions. Despite of this, I think the HDR shots looked really good from this 11T Pro. Looking at these results, I left the HDR mode on auto for all of the images in this video. The main camera is very fast at setting the focus on any object, which is very important when it comes to taking close-up shots. You don't want the camera to keep on hunting for focus because you might miss the shot during that time. As you can see, close-up shots from the main camera of this 11T Pro look really good. The subject is in very sharp focus, and since the sensor is big and the aperture is also very wide, the background gets a very nice and natural looking bokeh. If you want to get even closer to your subject, you can switch to the macro mode. This is a telemacro camera and it can take amazing looking macro shots. Since it's a 5 megapixel sensor, there are respectable amount of details in these shots. There is another reason why these macro shots look so good, and that is the telephoto lens in front of this sensor. Thanks to this lens, you can get twice as close to the subject compared to other phones, and that also compresses the background, which gives these macro shots a very nice and pleasing look. If you are into macro photography, you are going to love this camera. Just remember to take these shots in plenty of light, because in anything less than ideal light, there will be a lot of noise or grain in your macro shots. As I said before, all images from the main camera were 12 megapixel pixel binned ones. And as we saw earlier, there are a lot of details in these shots. But if you want to capture even more details, you can switch to the 108 megapixel mode. You might not see any difference between these images from so far, but as I zoom in, you can see the 108 megapixel shots have much more details. This is true for most of the bright lighting conditions. But for indoors or artificially lit areas, you won't find any difference between the 12 and 108 megapixel shots. 12 megapixel ones will actually look better as they have less noise in them. High resolution shots have more details in them, but they are also 3 to 4 times larger in terms of file size, so they take up a lot of space on your phone's memory. I suggest you to take 108 megapixel shots when you are trying to capture some architecture or landscape, or when you know that you will want to crop on a particular part of the image later on. For all of your other shots, I suggest you to stick to the default 12 megapixel mode. When you want to capture more of the scene, but you don't have any space to move back, you can switch to the wide lens. Here's how much more of the scene you can get in the wide shot compared to the primary one. This wide lens also lets you capture a different perspective of the same scene by standing at the same exact spot. Xiaomi seems to have done a good job of matching the color temperature and white balance of the normal and wide cameras on this 11T Pro. You won't see any major difference in the white balance between these two shots. If you look at the wide shots, they seem to have enough details from so far, but there is just an 8 megapixel sensor behind this lens, so these images quickly start falling apart if you zoom in on them. Center of the frame is still very sharp, but the edges are slightly distorted and you will even see a bit of artifacting there. I think it is high time we start getting high resolution sensors behind the cameras on the phones in this price range. If you take wide shots indoors or in artificial light, they have even less details and much more noise in them. Other than the lower resolution sensor, this camera also has a narrower aperture which lets in less light on its sensor, and that results in so much more noise in the indoor shots. So remember, if you want sharpest and noise-free wide shots, make sure to capture them in bright outdoor lighting conditions. Coming to the portrait shots, this is my favorite mode to shoot in on any smartphone. This is the easiest way to make your smartphone images look like they were clicked on an expensive DSLR camera. This phone doesn't get a dedicated depth sensor, so it relies on software to detect the edges of your subject and separate it from the background. Like with most of the other Xiaomi phones, edge detection is almost perfect with this one as well. As good as these portrait shots look, for some reason the colors look a bit pale and there is a bit of over-sharpening in your main subject which doesn't look very natural. There is a beauty or skin smoothing option while shooting these portrait shots, which I suggest you turn on and keep on a lower setting for these portrait shots to look even more natural. All that being said, overall I still like the portrait shots that this Xiaomi 11T produces. The best thing is, this phone is very fast at detecting the edges for these portrait shots, so you don't have to wait for the edges to be detected. Just point your phone towards the subject and the portrait mode is ready to go. Edge detection is just as accurate while taking portrait shots of animals or objects. You can adjust the amount of blur to the background and even the areas of the shot that are in focus after you have clicked the image, which is a great feature to have. If you guys don't use the portrait mode on your phone, please start using it more often and see how much better your images turn out. With that, let us move on to the images which are taken indoors, artificial and low lighting conditions. Normally, this is where most of the phones start falling apart. The flagship phones, or the ones which cost more than this, have OIS on their main camera to help with these lighting conditions, but the mid-budget smartphones don't. That being said, this doesn't seem to be bothering the Xiaomi 11T Pro all that much. These artificially lit images from its main camera look pretty good. Sure, there is a bit of noise in these shots, and the details are not as sharp as they were during the daytime, but these images still look good. When you get to even lower light, or when you feel that the light is not enough, you can switch to the night mode and that makes the images look much better. As you can see, the night mode shots are much brighter and there is a lot less noise in them. Night mode on this phone doesn't take too long to capture the shot, so you don't have to hold your phone steady for more than a couple of seconds. Night mode shots also handle the exposure from light in a much better way. You can switch to the wide lens, but since it doesn't get a good enough sensor and wide enough aperture, low light wide shots look terrible by itself. You can turn on the night mode for the wide shots as well, and that makes these images much better. Not only these images look much brighter, but everything also looks a lot sharper. That being said, I still don't feel comfortable enough using this lens in anything less than ideal light. So overall, I feel the main camera on this Xiaomi 11T Pro can take really good images in lower light. I think it might even be the best at it in this price range. But we will of course have to compare it with other phones to know this for certain. That brings us to the front-facing camera. It gets a 16 megapixel camera at the front, and the selfies look sharp and detailed. They are a bit sharper than normal, but I won't call these to be over sharp. Overall colors of the images look good, but I feel the skin tones appear a bit dull or pale in these selfies. This is obviously a calibration issue, and I think it can be fixed with an update. In the meanwhile, you can add a bit of saturation to these images in editing to fix the issue. The phone is again very accurate at detecting edges for the portrait selfies, but again, there seems to be a bit of sharpening applied to the faces in these portrait selfies, which everyone might not like. To get rid of this extra bit of sharpening, you can turn on the skin smoothing mode and have it set to a lower setting. If you set it too high, the whole selfie will look very smooth and flat, so be aware of that. Here's a video from the front-facing camera of the Xiaomi 11T Pro. You can see how it handles the overall colors of the scene, exposure, and stabilization when I'm walking around with it. The maximum resolution at which this camera can shoot in is 1080p 60 fps. Overall, I really like the cameras on this phone, especially the main and the macro ones. They are definitely one of the best in the 40,000 rupees price range. If you guys have been following closely, the main camera is at its best when you're shooting images in bright daytime. HDR mode also works really well on this phone, and it is just amazing at clicking close-up and macro shots. Other than the slight sharpening issue, overall portrait shots also turn out really well. While the low-light performance might not be as good as some of the flagships, I would say these low-light shots are still the best in its price range. And if you guys remember from earlier, I am also very impressed with the video shooting abilities of this phone. This is what I feel about these cameras. But you guys saw the image and video samples too, so what do you feel about them? Let me know in the comments. In the coming videos, I am going to compare the cameras on this phone with some of the other ones which I have, so make sure you have the notifications for this channel turned on. That is it for this video guys. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to the channel for a lot more quality tech videos like this. You can also check out some of the other videos from this channel. This has been Sagar and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.